welcome back. You're still watching Now Cruise. Despite the fact that the governments design their own processes to deliver their services to the public, most public administration systems lack the agility, the automatism, and the flexibility. Strategic consultant makes the link through dynamic people-oriented processes. And now it's time to know more about this concept. It's a bit complicated through the management consultant, Dr. Mohamed Youssif. Hello, Doctor.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. What are the human traits that contribute to the business success?
Well, talking about business success is talking about building institutions, proper institutions that serve the government first and serve the masses, the people. First of all, we're talking about the culture of the individuals, the education, and most importantly, the interpersonal skills that will contribute to the building of the institutions we're talking about.
But what are the, you mentioned the personal skills of people. What can be defined as the personal skills of anyone?
Interpersonal skills like resilience, independent thinking, and ability to start own business and not depend on a regular day-to-day 9-to-5 job.
But shifting the Egyptian economy to comprehend the importance of the service sector is pretty important now, of course, with the current state of the Egyptian economy, the current bad state of the Egyptian economy.
That's right.
How can we improve that?
Well, let's face it, some of the major economies and leading economies around the world depend heavily on service as a revenue generating sector. I'll give you a simple example. Canada, for example, 78% of the Canadian GDP comes from the service industry. And when we talk about service here, we're talking about local industries. Service here entails the Medicare, education, other telecommunication services. I'm not mentioning anything that has to do with export. We're only talking about services
within the country itself and within local communities.
Exactly, delivered to Canadians. So in Egypt here, if we depend heavily on that sector, but we cannot depend on a backward system, we need to develop the telecommunication services, the education, the Medicare, the government services, when the individual, the day-to-day Egyptian citizen that uses the government services, if that kind of service is well administered and highly delivered, that would bring fantastic revenues to the government.
But wouldn't that be harder for us as Egyptians to be adopting such a skill or adopting such a new system here in Egypt, to be depending on these service skills here in Egypt, especially that we don't have as good a technology with the Canadians and the Americans?
I understand.
If we apply it in villages maybe here in Egypt, it wouldn't be that successful, would it be?
I totally agree with you, but we cannot import a prepackaged system and adapt it to the Egyptian environment. That's totally wrong. It would not work, and if we outsource that kind of system, it would crumble down sooner or later. What we're talking about here is training. When we are talking about training, we're talking about elevating our local system, our local know-how, our local expertise and knowledge. And when we build that knowledge base, then and only then, we would have a workforce that is able to deal with that kind of sector and develop it. We already have multinationals. These are hyper competitive, globalized firms. We're used to them, like the telecommunications, like the oil companies, and we can use them only and only when they have to share that kind of knowledge with us.
Yes, but a lot of Egyptians are actually lacking the culture of planning, which is really important for anyone trying to do anything actually in the world. A lot of Egyptians don't have that, and we start piling up work till the last minute. How can that affect the economy negatively?
Well, poor planning, lack of planning would lead us to nowhere. But the solution comes from the management consulting world. I'm not talking about outsourcing the whole thing totally, but if we outsource the knowledge and the know-how to develop that kind of skill in the Egyptian culture, actually, if we establish a system that doesn't have to depend heavily on the human skills. The system
Yes.
itself, if the system is smart and we train the right workforce, then we'll get somewhere or someplace better than we are now. But if we keep on judging, criticizing the current situation, we're not getting anywhere. We're a lot of analysts, political and economic analysts, still insist that we are in an economic crisis. I would say it's a recession. I would say a recession that we can always leave behind
Yes.
only when we start working as people, individuals, and as decision makers.
But in your opinion, we have a really poor system, not a smart system, right?
The system is ineffective.
Ineffective. How
Ineffective.
can we change that?
Like I said, by implementing the right tools. Right tools come always from the management department.
Yes.
Uh,
It usually comes from above to downwards, right?
That's another predicament and paradox we're caught in, by the way.
Yes.
The top level decision makers.
Yes.
Modern management depend on empowered teams. That comes from a line of management called Six Sigma. They build empowered teams, people who collaborate with each other without having to
have
follow the hierarchy,
Yes.
the old notorious hierarchy that leads us, as I said before, to nowhere and poor performance. What elevates or increases the performance is the collaboration in a very well empowered team. This is what we need.
Yes. But after the 25th of January revolution, a number of young men and women are trying to have their own businesses now. How can they do that in these circumstances, and who they can go to for advice and for
Well-
financial help, of course?
Right. Before they go and risk their hard-gained money or time or effort, they have to use the government legislation to start a business. And this is what we are trying to touch base with. The government decision makers, they have to start to use more dynamic legislations, start to be more effective, and start to implement new management systems, start to train their staff how to be more flexible in order to encourage entrepreneurial activities within the young people. We need to change, we need to develop our mindset first before going out there and risking valuable resources.
But how can the schools and universities and any other educational institution be adopting such a system or adopting such a mentality for the people,
Right.
for the young men and women, of course, the students and the students at the faculties and the students at
Right.
at the schools, to be adopting such a mentality in the future?
Well, it all starts with that. Actually, it starts with the education system. And when I'm talking about educations, I don't mean universities first. I'm talking about schools. Schools must learn how to develop that kind of skills within students. They have to teach them how money is earned, how their parents make the money first,
Yes.
and how to save it and how to spend it wisely. You see, this money handling or management culture starts at this very young age. That's the role of the schools. And at colleges, if you notice, most entrepreneurial activities are undertaken by non-business majors and school dropouts. If we look at, for example, Apple Macintosh, the late Steve Jobs is a school dropout. Same thing with Zuckerberg of Facebook. He's a school dropout. So it's not the faculty or the college
Or the amount of education itself.
Exactly. It's the entrepreneurial skills that they will develop. So the role of the universities and colleges, collegiates, and higher institutes is to cultivate that entrepreneurial cultures within their curriculum. We notice that even North America, Europe, Japan, here in the Middle East, most schools have this little office called job search help.
Yes.
Well, they need to replace that with entrepreneurial skill and interpersonal skills development. Rather than teaching them how to look for a job, is to teach them how to create their own sort of employment. And that creates jobs and generates employment to other individuals afterwards. After all, we can all be entrepreneurs
Yes.
or business owners. So it all starts with that. Uh, Elementary schools, middle schools, and then post-secondary education.
But you mentioned that everyone actually here can be doing this job and training the youth and the young men and women of Egypt now. What about the business organizations and the banks, especially that we're going through a very hard time for the economy for Egypt? They can be going on to universities and students and maybe clubs, sporting clubs, to train them for the future. Can they do that, or they don't have enough time or enough money to do that?
If we're talking about business developed organizations affiliated with the government,
Yes.
then they have a role. If we're talking about private corporations, they do have another role. Both of them need to come down to the communities. Most of them work or have this department called social responsibility. I would suggest one of their social responsibilities is to start engage within the society. That's one. Two is to lower their risk level, to be more risk tolerant, to know how to identify skills within their own workers first, and teach workers or employees how to voice their new ideas, their innovation, and not fearing to lose their job if they expose it or offer it to the top management level. So many organizations who elicit a lot of money from the society
Yes.
as a revenue, they should start engage with the society and offer these small to medium project ideas and teach the society or the interested individuals within the society
Yes.
how to write a proper business plan, how to help them manage their money, and how to set realistic goals so that the entrepreneur or the small or young business owner doesn't feel discouraged within a short period of time.
But right now we need as well to boost the economic growth of Egypt and to create a growth atmosphere here in Egypt. What does the decision maker, all the decision makers as a whole, have to do here in Egypt to be achieving such a feat or such an atmosphere?
We can talk from here to the day of judgment about development within the government service or the decision maker within the government. But one single tool is called change management. And when we talk change management within